Singapore households saw their median monthly income rise in 2024, while income inequality fell to its lowest level in 25 years. According to the Singapore Department of Statistics, median monthly income grew to nearly $11,300 last year. That's up from around $10,800 in 2023. But despite the growth, analysts say many may still feel the pinch of higher prices, even as inflation starts to ease. Sabrina Ng reports.
Rising costs across essentials like groceries, healthcare and housing. Cost of living issues are keenly felt by many in Singapore. But according to SingStat's annual paper on household income trends, they're also earning more money. Median monthly household income grew by 1.4% from 2023 after adjusting for inflation. One analyst says this could be one way employers can help with rising prices.
It might be a new normal as well. So I think this is, of course, good news from that point of view, that there is a 1.4% increase in real terms, which means that after adjusting for the inflation, which is sort of a change of cost of living, households are better prepared to address, they have a growth in purchasing power about 1.4% over time.
Individual wages are up too, from 3,500 Singapore dollars per month in 2023 to more than 3,600 Singapore dollars last year. But after factoring a higher cost of living, the 0.8% increase is slightly slower than the rate at which income per person grew over the past 5 years. Analysts say the slowdown is to be expected after a period of growth. But many may still be feeling the pinch of higher prices set during times of higher inflation.
Even as inflation slows down or stabilizes, the prices of many items have already risen and often stay at those elevated rates. Some of the main drivers of inflation are food and bus and transport fares. So these are everyday items that confront, the everyday Singaporean. Psychologically, consumers will still feel the pains from inflation, even as their income rises.
The paper also revealed that the government gave more financial help last year. Households received an average of around 7,800 Singapore dollars per member from government support in areas like cost of living, retirement and healthcare needs. That's higher than what they received in 2023. Those in 1- and 2-room public housing flats received the most government assistance. One expert says such support needs to be complemented with policies to promote social mobility.
The budget is coming real soon, so I would expect to see really similar levels of support for the low-income families to not only tide through again a period of still pretty high rates of inflation this year, but also really to meet the needs of healthcare, of retirement, of the education needs of their children.
The paper also revealed that income inequality has fallen to its lowest levels in 25 years, reflecting the government's increasing support for lower and middle-income households.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined by Sumit Agarwal, Professor of Finance, Real Estate and Economics at NUS Business School. Professor Agarwal, welcome to the program. First of all, what are the factors helping to boost Singapore's median household income last year?
Thank you for having me. I think about 4 factors. Economic growth has been pretty good in Singapore, and that has been a big factor because higher economic growth allows more job opportunities and higher wages for laborers. Education and skill development. Singapore has spent a lot of effort in providing better education, and that also allows people to be more productive. Also, government policies have been very pro growth and pro business. So that attracts foreign direct investment. And that also helps wages and outcomes and productivity of consumers. Finally, I think the technological enhancement that Singapore does, that obviously feeds into productivity and higher wages. So all these factors, I think, combined are the source of why we are seeing high wage growth in Singapore.
But how do our income trends stack up against other developed economies in Asia and around the world?
Yeah, so if we look at a longer window, Singapore used to be around 2/3 or half behind Europe for a long time. But now Singapore is around way ahead of Europe and US and these countries. So Singapore has done amazingly well, and mainly because of all these factors, especially government policies that have made Singapore a pro-business friendly country, attracting foreign direct investment, making it a financial hub, creating these jobs, and technological improvement is really feeding into that.
So you're saying that we're ahead of the United States and Europe, but does that put us in a good position to weather global uncertainties?
Clearly, I mean, look, there are many things that can go wrong right now in the world. But if there is a macro shock, think about COVID or any other shock, everything else will go down. So Singapore is not going to take that brunt of that shock. As an economy. So I'm not that worried what will happen if there is other uncertainties that we see. Think about trade wars or anything else. That's not going to affect what is happening in Singapore because the fundamentals are very clear. There's high economic growth. And if economic growth slows down in Singapore because of geopolitics, the entire world economy will be slowing down because the biggest economy that will be slowing down will be the US itself because of the trade war.
But if you look at it from a long-term perspective, is the pace of income growth over the last few years sustainable in the long run? Or do you see it hurting Singapore's economic competitiveness?
I don't think so. Look, in the long run, we should not expect this kind of numbers because if it is, then what will happen? This will help hurt businesses because if businesses have to pay higher wages continuously, then their profitability goes down. So that's not good for consumers because then consumers will end up also paying more when they're buying. So we don't want this kind of higher wages to continue to grow. Moderate growth, 1%, 2% growth, as long as it's slightly above inflation, that's what we should be expecting in terms of wage growth in the long run.
Despite nominal income growth, Professor Agarwal, real wages continue to be affected by inflation. How can households adapt to these challenges?
Yeah, so this is tough. Look, I think households should always keep in mind the recent episode of COVID we just experienced. And so we can always have shocks and we should be prepared. Budgeting, investing, thinking of upskilling your skills are all the things we should always be doing as households. We should think about government is going to be there to help us and take care of us. But we should be thinking about saving, we should be thinking about investing, and we should be thinking about upgrading our human capital.
Should we also be spending more now?
Not necessarily, because spending more is an easier way for the economy to grow. But that kind of makes you worse off. You should always be thinking about saving first, investing, and then obviously, if there is additional relaxed budget constraint because maybe the government is pumping in some money, yes, for sure, go out and go have a good vacation.
Okay, vacation is always good. All eyes, meanwhile, are on Budget 2025 next week. There are expectations that it will announce more government transfers as an election budget and to address cost of living concerns. Now, if this happens, do you anticipate them to have an even greater distributive effect for 2025?
Yes, clearly. So first part of your question, will the government go in that direction? I expect them. It's a 60th anniversary. There is an election year, and also there are cost of living concerns. So for all those reasons, I do expect the government to have some fiscal stimulus packages that will help consumers. And most of the time, the way the government does this are essentially geared towards the lower income because those are the people who are feeling the brunt of the cost of living. And essentially, that will create a redistributive effort, which will essentially even lower the Gini coefficient further because it will help the poor to cope up with the cost of living and essentially adjust their income upwards.
All right, Professor Agarwal, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Sumit Agarwal, there, Professor of Finance, Real Estate and Economics at NUS Business School.